Silent moment of prayer, followed immediately by the oath to allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'm required to state that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided indicating the time and place of the meeting in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975 by advertising a notice in the Star Gazette and the Express Times and by posting a copy on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Beth, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes, members Del Caro.
Here.
Kleiner, Dagan, Fishback, France.
Here.
Rao.
Here.
Paul.
Here.
Mayor McKay.
Here.
Vice Chairman Fire.
Here.
Chairman Bender.
Here. We can move on to old business. Has everyone received a copy of the minutes of the last board meeting? Are there any corrections, additions, or comments?
Comment, they're still too long and we should get them more concise, is my view. I do make a thank you for now including page numbers and date. That'll be helpful in the future. With respect, however, to the website pages, we had mentioned in the minutes that we were going to do something about that, I thought, at the last meeting. Website pages with respect to the planning board are woefully behind. And I have a couple of sets here I'll pass down. One for that section over there. Mark, for your table, you can look at that. Here's the second one I've got in the middle. Okay, now when we look at this page, this is the thing that the public sees probably the most when they want to get in touch with the planning board. And as you can see, it shows Douglas Steinhardt as mayor. It's got a lot of people on here that aren't on here anymore. It's way behind. It shows the wrong attorney. It needs to be updated. In addition, the planning board minutes have not been posted to it since July of 2013. So I would like to make a motion that the planning board website be updated and that the minutes and the videos be added to that. That's my motion. Do we?
No motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? We don't have direct control over the website, though.
Yes, we do. We just tell them to put it on.
We requested them to put it on the last meeting.
We keep doing it, but it doesn't get on. And that's a higher effort must be made in that regard. Yes.
Well, that's all we can do is request. We don't actually control going on the website and putting it on there.
Yes,
as a planning board.
By virtue of this, we will be requesting formally, and then we should have it on next time. I hope.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, who oversees what it does?
I believe Beth does.
Do I oversee it?
On the website.
I don't oversee the website.
Who oversees the website?
Well, Lori's the webmaster.
So no one oversees it?
I'm not sure, Tony. I'd have to go back and look.
If she tells me
How
you
that
clear
whole thing
everything
was
that goes on
created.
there, so would you please tell her then?
I'll send her everything. So I put it on.
Okay, I'm sure. Well, that'd be great. All right.
Roll call, please.
So the motion on the floor is to video, put this on the website, correct?
Yes.
Update the website.
And when do you want it to start from? January?
Well, I'm sorry, when do I want it to
Yeah,
start?
you want it to go back, all the way back to a certain year, or?
Well, I guess 2013 might be fine for now, but let's
Okay.
bring it forward. We're not
Yeah,
forward
I just
past
want to
July
know where you want to
13.
start with that.
Mayor, I think you mentioned video in your motion,
Yeah, to the extent we have video.
to the extent we have.
Yeah, we just started doing the video, before it was just a tape, so now, that can certainly go on too.
Okay.
Just video, putting that up on a website, is that practical? That's a video takes a significant amount of space.
We have all the meetings of the town council.
They're on
They're gonna-
YouTube,
they're
though.
on YouTube.
They're not on the township website.
We can put these on your links, right?
Well, same one.
Yeah, well, that's what I'll, one thing to YouTube.
Update the minutes. It's fine.
Okay, so you want to include the video being put on YouTube?
The same way it's done for the town council.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Beth, roll call, please.
Sure, members Valcarro,
Yes.
France,
Yes.
Doral,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Mayor McKay,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Pryor,
Yes.
and Chairman Booth.
Yes. Okay. All right, next move, order of business and roll business is the co-op.
Minutes.
And then
Oh, okay. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes will stand as published. Okay, moving on further, the COA housing element and fair share plan. George, could you handle that for us, please?
Thank you. This evening, what you have before you is basically the updated fair share plan of housing for the master plan. What we're going to review a little bit this evening are those two elements, the purpose of which is to adopt them as an amendment to the existing master plan. To bring them into conformance with a submission we're preparing to the courts in support of the housing, the fair share housing obligation of the township. We're putting together a plan, and the fair share plan and housing element are two of three elements that have to be submitted in the package to the courts. I think we talked about this previously, but as you're aware, the courts several months ago now basically, best way to put it, lost confidence in COA and their ability to administer their housing plan for the state and to administer various townships coming before it for certification. And the courts have taken that function over. And they've basically given a window for towns that have fair share have housing plans pending before COA to make application to the court for certification. And we're coming up on that 30-day period when the towns can do it, basically in June, when the towns, if they wish to maintain their certification and protection of the builder's remedy suits, have to make application to the court, probably plan, indicating how they're going to meet the housing obligation for the community. For what is known as round 3 of COA, and that's for 2014 to 2024. And so what we have done is essentially, or the intent that was discussed was to take the existing plan that's pending in COA, has been pending at COA for years now, and package that along with the proposed amendment to the fair share plan and housing element, as well as a new spending plan and a new obligation that tries to address some of the court's concerns that they had with the way COA had originally calculated the numbers for each community. And what the approach we all decided to take was to use essentially the housing obligation numbers that COA had put together just before they were disbanded, the ones that were in June of 2014, and build a plan off of that, addressing those numbers, submitted to the court. No one knows how the court's going to judge these plans, quite frankly. Nor do we, at least I'm not aware of that they have any way that they're thinking of in terms of what is or how the fair share obligation for housing should be allocated on a township basis. This is our approach to it. We assume we will get into the courts. Hopefully they will like everything that we did with no comment. If they don't, though, they can come back and we have a time period of each 90 days within which to make adjustments and corrections to the plan as directed by the court. And during that time period, as long as the courts believe we're diligently pursuing a viable plan, you continue to be protected from the builders when we move forward. So what you're seeing tonight is just one step in that process. And we're seeking to update the fair share plan and housing element. The third would be Township's council adoption of a spending plan. That plan has not yet been drafted. And the reason is that we have not been able to get all the financial data that's on file with COA or to come up with essentially what monies are still available in the funds and to develop a plan going forward showing how we will spend and allocate that money to address our needs going forward for the state. So that's something we still need. Until we get that, this may be complete. So we have for a fair argument another 30 days to get that pulled together. We have to get it done. Just to give you a little background on what each of these are, the housing element is that you have before you is really just a document that tries to update some of the demographics of the town, some issues in terms of sewer and water availability, transportation. It's really a snapshot overview of where the town is currently at in terms of population, housing, that type of thing. The fair share plan is really how we intend to address our obligation, both past and going forward in terms of how we will actually provide affordable housing or how we have provided affordable housing, because part of the plan involves not only the obligation, but the credits that have been created to date, as well as our remaining obligations that we have to meet. Starting with the housing element, and just to give you a little bit of an overview to keep in the back of your mind, which is recently here tonight. In June of 2014, COA had come up with what they believed was the appropriate third round obligation for Lopatcong Township. And what they came up with at that time was essentially a rehabilitation share of 0. In other words, they saw no need for rehabilitation. The unanswered prayer round number was 56 for new construction, and the fair share prospective need was 51 for basically an obligation of 107 units. That's the baseline for round 3 as we see it today. And as we go through this, we'll discuss both our credits and obligations and how we get that. And that is really the reason for putting this together. In terms of the housing element, just to give you a little overview of the township, and probably most of you know this information generally already. As of 2010, the housing stock in town was about 3,420 units. Of those, 3,136 were occupied, to about 284 vacant units in town. The population in the 2010 census was about 8,014. If you compare that back to the 2000 census, the town actually has undergone a fairly substantial growth in population, at least at the beginning of this period. During the recession, obviously, we all know how much has happened. But in 2000, the town had a population of 5,765. So you've seen almost a growth of 39%, which would be considered a pretty high growth rate, particularly if you assume the 4 or 5 years of recession, which we will have. To give you a sense of where we are population-wise on a unit basis, owner-occupied units are being occupied at the rate of about 2.09 persons per unit. The rental units are about 1.9 more persons per unit in terms of home ownership, the township now stands at about 77% is actually owned outright. That's compared to the county, which is about 75%, so you have a little bit higher home ownership in the county. Single family, you're almost even with the county. About 81% of your units are single family, about 82% is in the county, so it's a pretty close mix. Most of the homes in town are relatively new. 69% of the homes are 1970 or newer in town. In terms of, just to give you an idea of incomes compared to the county and also value of homes compared to the county, basically the median income in town right now on a family basis, and that's as of 2013, is $76,219. That's higher than the county average. The county's averaging about $70,912. So the town has a little bit higher income on average than the county, about 8% higher. In terms of the value of the homes, it's slightly turned the other way. The township has a median value of $266,000. The county has $271,000. So the housing in town is a little more affordable than the average. Interestingly enough, the rental rates in town are higher than the county average. Essentially, based on the data we've seen, the average median rent in town is about $1,166. The county is about $90. So the rentals are a little bit higher overall. In terms of general development in the town, as we said, we started out at the beginning of 2000 going forward at a very rapid development phase that cooled during the recession. And it hasn't bounced back significantly yet, even though there is beginning to see an uptick of new projects started in town. Many of the older projects have, after a number of years, have managed to pretty much build out. So that's beginning to change, but development over the last couple of years has actually been pretty low. In terms of job creation, that's been pretty weak. Essentially, what we've seen is that job creation has dropped. The covered employment, we're down, it's dropped, down to about 100. We have 33 businesses, 582 jobs. That's down from a high of 781. So the employment has scaled and came off a little bit over the intervening years. One of the things, though, that has happened in town that I think has some significant value since the last housing element was that as part of the Highlands process, the Highlands master planning process, we were successful in having a substantial portion of town put into a Senate district. This gives the community much more flexibility, at least within that area, to control some of its own destiny, to support the extension of infrastructure, given what becomes available. And it's also one of the things that should allow the town to have far more flexibility going forward, particularly in terms of its industrial commercial development, and also supporting other projects within that center designated area for future development. To give you a sense of it, right now the main limiting factor on future development in the town will be the availability of infrastructure, sewer, being the main cap on future development in the town. Essentially, at least based on what we were able to pick out of the wastewater management plan, the town currently obviously is served by Phillipsburg, which has a 3.5 million gallon capacity on it. Of that, the township, I believe, is allocated about 801,000 gallons. There was a remaining capacity in town today to serve developments within the community. I think it's all been allocated away except for about 82,600 So going forward, probably the biggest obstacle to future development, commercial, retail development, or even for that matter, housing, will be the availability of sewer, basically provide services.
George, I'm sorry, before you leave that point, are you finishing the sewer? I wanted to
I'm just
ask you a
giving
question
quick
before you
overview.
left that point.
Go ahead.
I don't know, you might have missed it in the wastewater management plan. You're getting to the 83 by saying that the data center is gone, right?
Right.
There's actually a footnote in there. There's 20,000 gallons in dispute between POHAT and Lopatcong. So we can only really specify a range right now. I think you said 83, it'd be 63 to 83 round numbers.
Yeah.
That's never really been, that dispute has never really been resolved.
Okay.
And it's in the wastewater management plan.
I'll double check that and get it in the report. I will say it just goes to indicate further that how tight the sewer supply is. And I think quite frankly, it'll act as a cap going forward or greatly limit your choices as to the type of businesses that can locate in town. The intensity of development that you can support. You don't end up with more infrastructure.
What's the capacity of the Phillipsburg?
Well, the plant itself, I gotta admit, I don't know all those numbers. The plant itself is a maximum of 3.5 million gallons.
And what are they at? 90%?
Well, they're split between several towns. I don't know where they're at.
They're at 2.3 million a day.
Okay, so they're about what, 70%?
What's they're all allocated for the 3.5?
Right. But right now, it's running about 2.3 million, 2.5
In actual sewage?
in that pursuit failure right now.
So can we get our cap increased? Yeah.
Probably not, because all of the allocation has gone to the surrounding.
All the towns are competing for allocation. They're in the middle of a bunch of improvements now, and these improvements in and of themselves don't expand the plant capacity. Physically, it wouldn't be too difficult for them to expand the capacity, but in terms of regulatory approvals, the DRBC, and other things, that's probably the tougher road. I know they'd be willing to entertain, just not everybody wants capacity. Some of the towns feel that's just going to encourage more growth. So.
Yeah, the town still has a fair amount of ample landfill for development, both in the center designation as well as in exterior areas that are in the planning area and preservation area. But clearly, you're looking at having an area in the center designation where you can maximize those types of opportunities, which has always been one of the policies of the town, is to try to encourage development within that area, particularly hopefully commercial and industrial variables. But it will have a cap. It will be there. And I think that'll be one of the issues going forward that'll put a cap on the stuff that the town will develop going forward. To take a look at how we net, and I think it's easier to lump these two together. I'm going to move now into numbers within the fair share plan as well as some of the discussion that was in the housing element in terms of how we intend to meet our third round obligation, which is probably the most important aspect of the plan. As we had indicated, that the third round obligation, the rehabilitation share was 0. The third round obligation, new construction, was 56. And prospectively, 2004 to 2024 was 51, for a total of 107. Against that, we have credits, and that is credits that were developed from round 1 and round 2 that carry forward against these numbers. And what we have looked at is the rehabilitation share. As we had pointed out, COLA today set our number at 0. The township has in the past renovated 12 units, so that's credit of 12 sitting on the rehabilitation side. The unanswered prior round obligation, which COLA is set at 56, We have several credits that take a substantial dent into that. We have a prayer cycle credit for local background senior housing for 40 units. We have an inclusionary development overlook, 16 units, that's overlook at Lopatcong, 16 units. The remaining prayer round obligation in that case has been reduced essentially, remaining unanswered prayer round obligation is 0. So that's been cleaned up. So leaving really the fair share of prospective needs is the remaining aspect of the plan that we have to address. And what we have there is Lopatcong senior housing, which is a surplus carryover from the original project of 6 more units. We have supportive and special needs housing, region group homes of 11 units. And we've calculated a rental bonus. The Supreme Court indicated that there was a willingness to still give bonuses for rental type houses. And we made the assumption that they're going to continue to allow that. So we calculated a bonus going forward, which means that the remaining obligation is basically 23 units that we have to essentially have a program in the third round obligation. And that obligation has been met through basically 2 mechanisms. One, we have the rehabilitation surplus of 12 units, which is carried forward. And we have a new construction. And Sycamore Landing is going under construction. That was our affordable housing project that we approved several years ago. It's finally under construction. And they're doing a 20% set aside, and we're going to get 51 units out of that project. So as it stands right now, we have a surplus of 62 units based on the numbers that we have. So essentially, we believe that the township has met its obligation and is actually carrying a surplus forward. And if there's any dispute about how we calculated rental bonuses, or if the court disagrees with that, we still have the actual surplus sitting there to help offset the discussion. So actually going forward for the remainder of round 3, you can argue the township is a surplus and does not have an obligation going forward, an actual legal obligation. That doesn't necessarily mean that you don't want to create affordable housing to address it, but clearly I think we can show that we've met our obligation. And the spending plan, which is not part of your obligation to approve, would address really the cost of administering the project, and also the cost of one of the sections that has always carried forward was two things. We would suggest that the township consider expanding its multifamily inclusionary zone to cover some other sites for possible future use. And also, there's an affordability section in the COA regulations. Both the courts are going to consider that or not, but in COA, part of your ongoing responsibilities is to basically have funds set aside to buy down units or provide rental assistance to units that are currently in the program. I guess the best way to describe it is that if you had a low-income person that was moving into a COA unit, but the only one that was available was for a middle-income person, this would be a type of rent subsidy that would allow him to buy into the higher unit. They have that 30% of the budget is supposed to be set aside for that purpose. We are assuming that we will provide that program rental assistance and buy down assistance for qualified persons. And that will be carried forward in the spending plan. It's not part of the housing So that's really a broad overview of where we are. I do think the town is in pretty good shape. We do have to get our materials together and get them in the board system on time, and then begin that process of working it through there, hopefully getting a certified plan out. I guess I'll try to answer the question.
Thank you, George. Any questions?
Quick question from here. Were any of the COA numbers that you worked with impacted by the Highlands build-out calculations?
Yes, the 51 is part of the, part of that process that the Highlands went through for the build-out. Came into that, helping to establish that.
Is that another thing that the court's going to have to sort out?
They're going to have to sort it out because how the Highlands meshes with the need numbers and that type of thing, it's unclear to me how they're going to work that out. That's one of the reasons we took the numbers that COA developed as a starting point. Because it's my own opinion that I find it hard to believe, I should say, that the courts are going to, they got to find a basis that they can judge the different towns by. And I can't imagine that they're going to let each town in each situation try to come up with what their fair share allocation is. And I would say the other side of the thing is that it was specifically mandated by the Highlands that in order to finally be certified under the Highlands, that it's consistent with the master plan, is you have to have a certified housing element, or a certified plan to meet your COA obligations. So the two are linked. I mean, you have to address both in reality in terms of the program. So I think the courts are going to have to struggle with that. I don't know where they're headed on it. Our approach was to take what COA had come up with as the numbers and develop a plan for that.
It sounds to me, though, that we have such a surplus from Sycamore Landing that this reconciliation should be covered in our
Well, I think so.
have enough to cover.
One of the advantages I think you have is if there are disputes, either with the court or with the housing advocate over numbers, we clearly have a surplus of actual real units that are being built, not just paper units or bonus units that we dreamed up with. We actually do have a surplus of real units to use against those disputes. So I feel that we're in a pretty good shape. And we don't know where the courts are going, but I feel pretty comfortable. Yes.
The Clymer Village units, the numbers you're using for the number of units in there, are those like negotiated numbers? I think the number of units in there are more.
Well, the number that we had for Clymer Village, I think that was a, well, I guess you'd call it a negotiated number, but it was the number of units that were age-restricted rental units is where we got them.
I think it may be more.
I'll check, but these are the ones that have been carried forward in all the housing elements of fair share plans since round one. So,
Yeah, that was one of those pilot programs. And they get used to.
I can't say more than that.
I will look into that much more.
Okay. So hopefully, if there's a lot of questions, I recommend that the planning board consider adopting the amended housing element fair share plan, and that they just forwarded the council for their consideration. The council doesn't vote on this. It's not their responsibility to prepare it, but as part of the package, it should probably work better than spending so they have everything in front of them.
You also indicated you needed financial information with respect to the COA fund?
Yes, that's one of the things that we have to finish, the spending plan, and that's really tied to the actual, it's actually tied to the monies that the plan currently has in it, how the monies have been spent, what monies you've collected. I have a series of questions that have to be answered, but it's the financial part of it. It's a part of it that has always been filed with COA. There have been reports that have been filed yearly with COA indicating the status, the financial status of the fund. And we need those numbers as a starting point to do the spending plan going forward.
Those are available.
Okay, well, as long as somebody can get them to me, I'll develop a plan. So far, that has not been, I've been trying to get them for quite a while, but so far we haven't been able to assemble.
Okay, approximately $230,000 put into a specialty bank account.
Yes,
Project Hope.
that's for Project Hope. That's the escrow fund to do 2 homes. That I'm aware of, but what we need is the actual bookkeeping, the actual bank account information as to what's in the fund, what monies have been collected, so that we can actually match our spending plan to what COA believes is in the fund.
Nicole believes that we owe them. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, well, but I think we still have to have a starting point. I don't know where you are in that negotiation with COA, but I would believe that as a starting point, we ought to have at least what's in the fund today as of December 31st, 2014. And then whatever good information can be supplied to me, we'll go forward. And what happened in the past still has to be resolved, but at least we can submit a plan working with the monies we have today. And fortunately, it appears that other than the affordability section of the fund, we don't really need any substantial amounts of money to fund projects. And you do have already the money set aside for the 2 housing projects we just talked about. That's still held in reserve to fund those.
Yes, and I believe some building lots were pledged, but not been paid.
That's right, for the 2 homes.
I think the data too.
But I need the data, yeah, so that I can
I'll
actually.
get you the data.
Right. Who's responsible for the data?
I think it would be our CFO and our zoning official.
The CFO has.
But you have to provide the data too.
We'll get you that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just needed to get it done. And I have a list of criteria. I'll give it to Beth. We can hand it around. Looking for it as much of it as we can.
Did you say you had to, you have to be set aside for buy down units and, you know, rental assistance? Where's that funding come from?
It comes out of the monies that you have. It's a percentage of the monies that you have in the fund. In other words, if we project over so many years that you're going to collect $100,000, let's say, COA had a requirement that 30% of that be allocated to make units affordable. So there's specific breakdowns. Again, whether the courts will hold us to that or whether they'll let us reallocate that money, I don't know. We're just following more or less what COA, the way they had set it up, the lack of really no other way to define it right now.
So where's that funding source that got into that? Where'd the funds come from?
Well, the town has a fee ordinance where they collect money on new construction, which a percentage of new construction money goes toward the affordable housing fund. And then in the past, there were agreements on developments to actually pay a fixed amount, which went into the fund. So it's really money that's collected as part of new growth in the town, new communities, and the collection of fees. And like I say, fortunately, the town has been able to actually have a fair amount of units actually physically built in lieu of contribution of money. So we actually get some units.
Any further discussion, questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the housing element in the fair share unit.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Who seconded it?
Discussion,
Oh,
discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, Beth?
yes, members Del Faro,
Yes.
France,
Yes.
Morale,
Yes.
Paul,
Yeah.
Mayor McKay,
Yes,
Vice Chairman Pryor.
Yes.
and Chairman Monkey.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
Beth, you'll send a letter up to council with the resolution indicating that we've adopted it, and then they can proceed
Yes.
with the funding solution then, or information, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I understand they won't be able to adopt anything at the next meeting until we get the spending plan.
That's fine. We do have a deadline on it though, right, George?
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we have to, either by a special meeting of council or definitely by the next meeting, we have to,
Okay.
so that the attorneys have time to put together their
it'll have to be the July meeting, I would assume, Mayor. Okay. Until we get the numbers from everybody or George for the spending plan. This all come to our July meeting.
we can get the numbers to George
And then,
tomorrow. next
We'll
week.
take one.
Okay.
Yeah, the
then
numbers
we
are
can
around.
do
I've
it
seen them.
next week.
Yeah, we'll try.
Okay.
Okay, moving on next, we have Larkin Associates LP, Block 116, lots 2601, 27, 2702, and 28. Has a conceptual site plan. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ron Shimanowitz from the firm of Putton Shimanowitz. I'm here on behalf of Larkin Associates. They are the contract purchaser of the site. The chairman just rattled off the lots and blocks for you. It's about a 16.6 acre site. It has frontage on Route 57 and Baltimore Street. We were before you, different council representing the developer. I'm new to the application. Happy to be here. But back in the end of March, we began a presentation to you informally to start hopefully a rezoning process, showing you the site and requesting a rezoning from the highway business zone to hopefully a multifamily zone. At that hearing in March, out of the colloquy between the board and the applicant, certain comments came out, certain questions came out, and since then we resubmitted to you two plans, what we call option 1, option 2. And what we'd like to do tonight is present those two plans to you. We brought a team with us, as you can see, but I promise you, everyone's been instructed to keep it very short, but we did want to cover the various disciplines, including engineering, planning, traffic, fiscal impact, and things like that. We've studied it all, but we don't plan to give you an hour of testimony on each. We'll keep it very short and sweet for the board's consideration. With that very brief introduction, and with the chair's permission, I'd like to call upon Bob Peibel, our site engineer, to start the process.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Heidel, how are you?
Good evening. Yes, I was here in March, and I just want to briefly go over what I presented at that point, and then what the questions of the board, and we have 4 colleagues of mine that are going to explain. Once again, it's a 16.6 acre tract. It's right next to Warren Heights South. It's across the street from Warren Heights North. The current property zone is the HB Highway Business Zone. And what we've asked the planning board to consider is a rezoning into the RMF zone, which is the exact same zone as the adjoining property to the west and across the street to the north. There was several reactions at the board, and part of that was what could be built on the property as of right within the HB zone. Although we haven't presented a plan, I prepared an analysis on my opinion as to what could be built, and I supplied that information to the applicant's consultants that are here. And I've done quite a bit of work in various municipalities, including Lopatcong Township. And adjacent to the site at the intersection of 57 and Strikers is Strikers Plaza. Now, Gardner Larkin Associates constructed that. At that point, the allowable impervious, and that's the key to here, was 70%. I found that usually, if it's a retail center, about 25% of the allowable impervious is actually the building coverage. What happened is, subsequent to that construction, the township actually has lowered the impervious to 50%. So it's my opinion that the yield could be 12.5%. So based on the 16.6 acre tract, it's my opinion that if a retail center was built there, a one-story, it had the appropriate driveways, number of parking spaces, etc., the yield would be approximately 90,000 square feet. That's the numbers that our consultants have utilized, and they got it once again from my opinion of this. By the way, I applied that to the 70%, and I was right on. So 25% of that was the 30,000 square feet. Secondly, there was a discussion at the board level about leaving a portion of the frontage as within the HB zone. The minimum lot area within the HB zone is 2 acres. So one of the two options that's going to be presented is actually going to show 2 acres within the HB zone, and it'll show that that's 8,700 square feet of retail that could be built. And then on the remaining 14.6 acres, 175 units, and that's based on the gross density of 12 units per acre. If one were to build no retail on the 16.6 acres, there's a plan, and we're going to show you, with 199. These are exactly the same numbers that I had in March, except that now there's a plan that shows those numbers. The other aspect was the board suggested that we interconnect and access from this property to the office daycare center that's on the northerly portion. We've done that, and you'll see that in a minute. And of course, connect this also to the Strikers Plaza retail center. So you'll see that we've done that. So we have a connection to Baltimore Street, we have a connection to 57, and we have an internal connection to the properties to the east. With that, I think we're going to bring up our next consultant.
Our next consultant is Rob Larson, who's an architect and also a site planner who prepared the concept plan.
Okay, so let's start off with the first option that Bob described, and please tell me if I need to turn this at all. What I've put up on the easel here is option 1. Again, this reflects 175 units and 8,700 square feet of retail. We've provided a boulevarded point of entry on Route 57, another point of access out to Baltimore Street, and also, as Bob mentioned, connections to the office and the other plaza here. I'm going to show you the architecture in a moment, but we're keeping it wood frame, low rise, some apartments. Some of them we would intend to have garages. Some would be the traditional garden apartment flat. Again, a little bit of variety built, as well as obviously client builds as maintained several initiatives in the area. We're showing this 8,700 square foot piece of retail up along Route 57, again with proper parking and access to its to the rear. And again, this is showing a rec center also up on Route 57 that we think would service the community well. I'm going to put up option 2, which shows 199 total units. Again, as Mr. Hummel pointed out earlier. Again, what we've done is we've just modified that forward area to add a few more of the apartment buildings, move the recreation center, but to keep similar the flow of the boulevard and entrance up on Route 57, access up to Baltimore, and still access to the 2 adjacent centers. What I'm showing here, again, is 2- and 3-story low-rise wood frame, properly parked for RSIS standards, and can accommodate a variety of unit types, 1- and 2-bedroom as well. For example, and I'm going to be brief, if you were to look at the darker brown buildings here, it's going to be the elevation I'm showing on top. And if we look at these sort of light brown buildings, that is going to be the elevation I'm showing on the bottom. As an example of the possible architecture, this is what I would consider a very typical but attractive garden apartment building, 3 stories with 3 floors of walk-up flat units. And on the lower part here, we are showing a 2-story product, again, looking to add some variety, some apartments that would be available to have a garage, to vary the market product a little bit. And again, this would reflect the buildings that are around the outside. So again, examples of the architecture, the layouts, I'm happy to leave them up or answer any questions, but
You probably didn't read our housing element. I didn't, so there you go. But one of our goals here is green buildings and sustainable site development. Is there any discussion of that?
I can't say I had direct discussion about that. I do know that I would leave that really to my client to answer as to his method of construction, but nowadays the modern codes already bring us forward in a lot of compliance with the new green standards.
Energy efficiency.
Energy efficiency, whether it be windows or appliances reusages. I believe we already employ that in much of what we build now. And again, I would let my client speak to that more.
I just also want to add, because it didn't come out in the testimony yet, on the option 1, which is 175 units, we'd be proposing, because they're rental affordable units, we had an in-depth discussion from Mr. Ritter on your housing compliance under affordable housing. A 15% set-aside would yield 26 affordable units out of the 175. On option 2, which is all residential, no retail, a 15% set-aside of rental affordables will be 30 affordable units. I know that's relevant to you in terms of your earlier discussion.
And I'll, just to piggyback on top of that, I'll make it clear that the concept that I've shown provides the ability to add in the numbers that Ron, Mr. Shemanowicz just mentioned, in the necessary mix that would be provided for the Uniform Housing Affordability Control. So the buildings shown can accommodate the necessary affordable that we would be required.
Mr. Chairman, unless there's questions of Mr. Larson, we'll keep moving along. Our next witness is Mr. Richard Redding, who is our expert on fiscal impact.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Richard Redding. I'm an economic analyst and consultant, and in connection with this matter, I prepared a fiscal impact analysis looking, we actually had done one prior for a different plan, but then modified it to reflect the economic and demographic impacts of the 3 plans that were just presented. The primary analysis is directed towards the mixed-use development, which is 175 housing units and a small retail component along the highway, 8,700 square feet. In that plan, the market units would be 148, and there'd be 27 affordable units. The bedroom mix is in the market units 49 1-bedroom and 99 2-bedrooms. The color units are allocated as prescribed by the current regulations. Minimum are 20% 1-bedrooms, 60% 2-bedrooms, and 20% 3-bedrooms. Given the rents for both the market and affordable units, the completed project would represent a value of about $29.7 million, and with your 100% assessment rate, an assessment of the same. When completed, the mixed-use plan would provide employment for 15 employees and have 362 residents. Tax support costs would be about $98,000 for the municipality, and for municipal tax revenues would be about $151,000, generating an annual surplus of $51,000 for the municipality. For the residential units, we use the demographic multipliers prepared by the Center for Urban Policy Research. We use 2 sets. One is the standard or statewide demographic multipliers for market units, and there's a separate set of multipliers for the affordable units. The 148 market units would be estimated to generate 13 school children, while 27 affordable units would generate 18 school children for a total of 31 public school children. Those school children would have an allocated cost of about $301,000, but the project would generate school district tax revenues of $449,000, indicating an annual revenue surplus of about $148,000. So overall, the market components, which is the 8,700 square feet of retail space and the 148 market units, will generate an annual revenue surplus of $459,000. That's for municipal, school, and county purposes. The affordable units, because of their lower rents and their lower values, would only generate a tax revenue of $79,000, but generate costs of $212,000. So they would generate a deficit of almost $133,000 a year. The surplus from the market units, the $489,000, will offset the loss from the affordables, and come up with an overall revenue surplus of about $326,000 per year. Having completed that analysis, we also looked at the two options that were discussed. One is an all residential development of 199 rental units. In that situation, the number of affordable units will also increase to 30 or 15% of the total. And that would generate a surplus, somewhat higher overall surplus of about $336,000 compared to $326,000 with the smaller project. And then finally, we looked at the all retail use, which, as Mr. Heibel had indicated, would anticipate a little over 90,000 square feet of retail space. It would be a project value of about $11.3 million, and it would generate a surplus revenues, but a smaller one, $246,000 overall, compared to $326,000 to $336,000 for the mixed use and the all residential alternatives. So I think that was the essence of the analysis we did, indicating that all three of the potential projects would generate a surplus. The greater surpluses would be generated by the mixed use and the all residential one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I read the report and I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I think I followed the analysis. I did have a couple questions on the estimated assessment. It's based on the rental revenue produced, and it's roughly, I guess, 10 times the annual rent.
On the residential units, it's a capitalization of the net operating income.
Yeah.
We assume that of the total rents, 40%, well, 5% would go to vacancy, and the balance of 35% would go to operating expenses. So 60% of the revenue is the net operating income. And we capitalize that at 6%, which would be the return rate. So the multiplier there is 120 times rent. On the non-residential, we had assumed a $10 net rental at 8%, which gave us $125 a foot, which then in turn gives the value for the rental.
Well, a couple things here. This is for my benefit. Is this how municipal assessor would come up with the assessment, or is this an economics?
No, this is really, we have two classes of property here. Apartments, they're both commercial. Apartments are class 4C, and the retail is a class 4A. And most assessors will look at that, the value of the property, as being derived from the cash flow of that property. And the cash flow of the property is the analysis that we did. So typical assessor approach is a capitalization of net operating income. That's the specific method they use, rather than the construction cost. Yeah.
The other question, you would expect rents to go up over time, and on the other hand, this is a rent control community, and I'm wondering how that factored into it.
As far as I understand the rent control law, and you are a rent control community, that new construction is exempt for a period of 20 years.
Pardon me?
I don't think so.
No, you're not. So these rents.
Yeah. What did you say? There was no rent control for 20 years?
Most towns that have rent control ordinances have an exemption.
I don't think that's the way ours reads, but.
Okay, so you have rent control from day one on new construction?
As I understand it, you're free to set a market rate day one, and don't go by me, this is my memory. set whatever you want on day one, and after that, you're under the formula, which is, I think, right now, 3%, or it drops to 2.8 if, what is it, depends on whether you provide heat or not. So, well, I'm just bringing that up.
Yeah, no,
Well,
well,
Mr. Carr said it correct. Once you put that on the market initially, you can set whatever price you want.
Okay.
At that point, though, it's limited to 3%.
and there's no vacancy decontrol in that ordinance, so there, but there are tax.
There's hardship,
Hardship, tax
exceptions,
pass-throughs, surcharges,
you know,
you would have those in there as well.
it's all
Yeah.
regulated by board.
And the 3% or the annual increase, that's an automatic?
No. Well,
It's not a hardship increase?
correct.
Okay. So you would come in annually
Exactly.
and request an increase based,
Former chairman of the
Okay.
Lopatcong board, so I'm familiar with this
Sure.
process. And the rent roll, pretty much we just take that rent roll, look at the leases, and then at that point it's 3% year over.
okay. And as it, with tenant turnover, there is no vacancy control.
Correct. Voted that down over 1.
And your surcharges and pass-throughs are for taxes and utilities?
Yeah, hardship, you get.
No, not hardship, just the pass-throughs without doing the whole audited hardship application.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we've had anybody come in for that.
Yeah, you as the chair, but I think you actually have to come before the board.
You come before the board.
Yeah.
But the hardship increase is usually a much, in my experience, is a much more detailed and elaborate increase with audited financial
You gotta come
statements.
in with the justification.
Yeah.
Replace all the boiler systems, what have you, and that, you know, it's cost.
Well, I guess would that affect?
So
your
your
analysis?
guidance here is that set the rents high initially, and that way you're protected
You
for
got
the
a
first few
market
years.
to do with.
Which I don't think my client has done here. I thought the rents were very
Yeah, but,
reasonable.
you know,
very
with
reasonable.
having this information now, would that affect your analysis at all?
With that, no, because the fiscal analysis is static and it's done at a point in time. This is as if it were built and occupied today. We don't project operating expenses, we don't project tax rates, we don't project assessment ratios. So this is as if it were built today. But knowing that you don't have a new construction exemption in your rent control ordinance, then my recommendation to the client is to set your rents higher for the initial year. And hopefully you'll achieve them with your attendance. But again, as pointed out, the actual rents will be subject to an annual report and audit. So setting them higher if you don't achieve them doesn't do any good.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Our next witness is our traffic engineer, who's Jay Trout.
Good evening. I'm with the traffic engineering firm of McDonough and Ray Associates, and we did a brief letter report summarizing some general traffic engineering issues with this property. The main item, of course, would be the traffic generation impact that the different options would generate. At the top of page 3 of my letter, we summarized site-generated traffic for 3 zoning scenarios. I want to draw your attention to a couple of time periods in that table, namely the weekday PM peak hour, which is your weekday afternoon rush hour, and then the Saturday, what I'll call midday shopping hour. For the as of right development scenario of 90,000 square feet of retail, you would have a potential traffic generation of 560 trips on a weekday PM peak hour and 819 on a Saturday peak hour. If you then look at option 1, which is the combination of 175 apartments and 8,700 square feet of retail, that weekday PM peak hour number would drop from 560 down to 226, and the Saturday number would drop from 819 down to 270. Option 2, which is just the 199 apartments, that number in the weekday PM peak hour then becomes 123, and on a Saturday peak hour becomes 104. So during those 2 critical peak hours, depending on which one you're looking at, you have anywhere from a 5-to-1 to 8-to-1 difference in traffic generation, with the retail being more intense. Most of the other things would be equal on this property. You could have access to both Baltimore Street and 57 for any type of development. You could interconnect to the other sites with any type of development. You know, all of those good planning features that you see on the plan could be done with any zoning scenario. So the main point, I guess, to look at in terms of traffic, again, is just comparing the intensities of the different options.
What the 90,000 square foot retail, what's the square footage of the adjacent retail area?
That's Stryker's Plaza.
What's the size of that?
It's the size, I actually didn't know that. About 30,000. It's about 30,000 square feet. And these numbers, just to back up, were calculated using standard industry rates published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, the same numbers that we would have to use for any traffic study we did in the state or any NJDOT application we would do.
I have a question on this safety concern. Getting on 57. Only for a fact, I know there's been a lot of accidents at the light, strikers in 57. Vehicles are traveling 50+ miles an hour, and there's a lot of truck from that 22, from the east.
Right.
So I was wondering if you guys have considered exiting onto 57, would it be a no left turn?
Yeah, that would definitely be a consideration in the detailed design of that access through the DOT access permit process.
It's going to increase traffic there. I hate to see, right turn is one thing, but making a left, and trucks and cars in 50+.
Right.
Be a sticky situation.
So then we would probably go to a right-in, right-out type driveway, especially with the rear access to Baltimore Street. There's no problem with a design like that.
Something to consider.
Absolutely.
If you would go for the all apartment complex, would it actually be necessary to have any driveway connection to 57?
It would not be necessary. You might need some kind of, we'd have to look at emergency access and, RSIS issues in terms of two means of access, but it would not be critical to have that 57 access at all.
Because as Mr. Belcaro stated, in that area, coming down there, especially coming with the traffic light, if you have a green light going westbound or north on 57, westbound I think it is, they really fly down there.
Right.
It's coming down, it's a tough thing, and yeah, and
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. They're not going to go slow.
you don't have an acceleration lane there or anything, so
Right.
I could see where it might be necessary for if you have a retail operation there, but if it's just going to be a driveway for the apartments.
Right, and those numbers drop so low that you can serve them
Exactly.
off of Baltimore Street.
One thing I'm just surprised at, we may be using standard, numbers and all, but I'll say for the adjacent space, if that's 30,000 square feet, so this is 3 times that.
Right.
The 30,000 square feet, in my opinion, without counting, doesn't really have much traffic in and out of it at all. So to take that number, a small number, multiply it by 3, compare it to the numbers you have in this chart,
Right.
they seem like way out in left field.
Yeah, and that
Because
may
there's
be,
hardly any traffic in and out of that 30,000
Right.
square foot. I pass every day. There's very few.
understood, and this, this isn't an action, this is what they would call an average number. The state makes you use what a typical center would do. And
Yeah.
also the 90,000 square foot allows you to do different tenants that generate higher volumes. Like you could do a grocery store. You couldn't do that at Stryker's Plaza, and now all of a sudden you're getting up there. You're a significantly different animal. So that's part of it.
Seems far-fetched.
I think we get a little ahead of ourselves here with actually
If I could.
determining which driveway we want to have or not.
No, but in terms of access, I mean, trying to make a left turn in this, I think that would be a dangerous situation, but you said you're eligible for an access permit. What's the next step up, an access permit with planning or?
Yes, the all retail scenario would probably be the highest permit category. It's called a major planning review.
Yeah.
So that's the big DOT category. These other scenarios would be just plain major permits. No
Well,
planning.
I recognize we're not in the site plan phase, but I think that would be an issue going forward, how that would be handled.
In terms of,
Whether it's right turn only or
Right,
people can
absolutely.
turn in, and whether you provide any kind of lane for merging or whatever.
yeah, we could definitely control the access if
Yeah,
there
the
were
trucks
one at
do.
all.
Like I said, it's 50 miles an hour, and it can be tough there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Question for Mr. Troutman. We give the RSI as certain traffic generation rates on a per-day basis. Do you view this development to be mid-rise or low-rise? With the traffic generation rates for each.
Is it, I didn't look at the elevation. It looks like we have a 3-story product, so it's actually a hybrid. You have some mid-rise at 3 and mid-rise at 2. I guess you'd have to break it down.
If you're sitting over a residential site, for instance, you can have a multi-family cul-de-sac, as long as the vehicular trips on a 24-hour basis are less than 1,000. So you could eliminate the access out at 57, as long as it's less than 1,000 trips a day. Actually, that's if you didn't have any emergency access. I think you could probably do more trips if you had provisions for emergency access. Another alternate access.
Well, we seem to have 1, 2, 3 other alternate accesses into the other, depending on going into where the child care center used to be, whatever it was. I mean, it'd be an easy access onto Baltimore Street as opposed to Strikers. The other one would be lead to Strikers, obviously, which we may not want to have there, but we have at least 2 viable other accesses there, so.
Right.
Question, if that was all retail,
Mhm.
do you have to come out on 57 or can it be?
I think you would probably want to have site
So too.
recognition of the shopping center and be able to get to it off of the highway.
I don't think you'd be able to lease it without
No.
access to
again,
57.
If it's a major retail operation, then I think we're looking at road-wide turn lanes and what have you, to accommodate them. I think we're looking at a different scenario.
Well, I think we might be jumping a little
Yeah,
ahead of ourselves here.
yeah.
Any further questions? If not, thank you very much.
Next, we have Art Bernard, who's going to speak a little bit about the affordable housing as well as planning in general for the site.
Good evening. How are you doing tonight?
Fine, yourself?
I'm doing great. I had hoped to be here to start a dialogue of why y'all should include the site into your housing element. And now I'm here after you've adopted your housing element, so my timing's not great tonight. But I think this discussion may continue. And George, before I forget, I think I might be able to help you in getting that spending plan data that you need. Maybe we can talk tomorrow. Yeah, I went through the same thing you went through. I think we might be able to do it. Anyway, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Art Bernard, and I'm a licensed professional planner with 40 years of experience in land use and affordable housing. For 8.5 of those years, I served the Council on Affordable Housing as its deputy director and executive director. And in both those capacities, I developed and supervised COA's entire work program and wrote the first and second round rules that the courts have approved. Since leaving COA in 1994, I've worked for some 24 municipalities in various capacities and worked with private sector clients all over the state and served the Superior Court as a special master on 5 occasions. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of my practice revolves around the affordable housing obligation. Now, Lopatcong has a history of addressing its housing obligation. It had when I was still at COA 20 years ago, the COA adopted rules that established that Lopatcong had a 1987 to 1999 housing obligation of 56 units, and you addressed it. Now, the downside of all this is that those rules that established the 56-unit housing obligation were adopted in 1994, and COA hasn't adopted any rule since. In the interim, COA has failed to adopt constitutionally compliant rules 3 times, and last year, you may have heard of the Fair Share Housing Center. They filed a motion with the Supreme Court to enforce a previous order. And in March of this year, the court responded by recognizing that COA no longer is a functioning agency, and the court provided timeframes for municipalities to address a post-1999 housing obligation. And it provided guidance to the courts, lower courts, as to how those obligations would be computed by directing the Mount Laurel judges to use what has been referred to as the second-round methodology. That's the same formula that I used 20 years ago before I left COA. This same Fair Share Housing Center, which is a nonprofit, has duplicated the second-round approach and come up with large fair share numbers throughout the state. And they're large for 2 reasons. They're large because COA didn't do its job for 20 years, and they're large because low and moderate income households, although sometimes we can talk about them as an abstraction, low and moderate income households are a large percentage of the total population. They're roughly 40% of all the households in the state. And so Fair Share Housing Center came up with a number for Lopatcong for 345 units. I know that sounds like a big number, and alternative approaches are being considered, and I agree with George, as we don't really know what the courts are going to do. But I can tell you that the COA rule proposal that was not adopted for a reason, and it was not adopted because it wasn't consistent with the court's order to duplicate the second-round methodology. So I think you're going to expect, whether it's 345 or some other number, I think you're going to expect that there's going to be a larger housing obligation out there, and at some point in time, you may be looking for other sites. And I hope that we can agree that this is a really good one. It's a really good one because, it's a really good one because it's an infill site that's been designed to accommodate the density. I guess it's probably in a center, George.
Yes.
It is in a center which is designed to accommodate growth. It's a really good one because it has good road access. It has access to Route 57, which is state highway. It also has frontage on Baltimore Street. It also could have access to Stryker Street through the shopping center if you choose to, if that's what the board wants. And there's a traffic light at the Stryker Road, Route 57 intersection to facilitate traffic movements near the site. So there are a lot of things going for the site. That it has multiple access points to distribute traffic, and it has excellent access to jobs and shopping opportunities through the state highway. And the site is adjacent to compatible land uses. It's just south of the attached housing to the north. It's just east of the attached housing to the west. It's adjacent to shopping. It's adjacent to a medical center, which I guess one of the plans shows a tie-in to the medical center portion of the property on Stryker Road. It's in close proximity to the medical center, close proximity to the fire department. And it's just sound planning to locate attached housing near other attached housing and shopping and medical center and schools and municipal services. In addition, although the site is impacted by a 300-foot buffer associated with a Category 1 stream, which separates it from the apartments to the west, the eastern part of the property is constraint-free and can easily accommodate the proposed community. So I find that the site can be developed in a manner that's consistent with DEP's regulations. So, you know, a lot of the things I've been talking about tonight are actually part of the COA regulations in terms of what you look for in a site. And this site conforms very nicely to those regulations. But I think more importantly, from a practical standpoint, it's just a really good site for additional multifamily housing and additional affordable housing. Any questions?
Thank you for your
Thank you.
presentation.
Just to address the question, I believe maybe Mr. Pryor's question regarding energy efficient construction. We do have David Gardner here, one of the principals with Larkin. I'd just like him to address that real quick, and then we'll sort of tie it all up.
Thank you.
David,
Hi.
you-
I don't think we would propose to build this with LEED certified or anything, but we would certainly do Energy Star and on all the appliances and insulation and various other green technologies. But to try to keep this place affordable for the market, it would be not affordable in terms of a COA definition, but in terms of overall, I think LEED could drive overall cost of the project up by 10-12%. So anyway, I wanted to at least answer that.
I guess the other element is low impact landscaping.
Yeah, we would work with it. We should get that far, and then we'll be happy to
Yeah.
work with you.
It's one of the goals of our.
No problem. Cooperation is our middle name.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to say that, thank you for listening to us tonight. This is all informal, not binding on anybody, but we really would love to get the process rolling. We're looking for feedback from you, what the next step should be. I mean, it's a rezoning process, so you guys have some things to think about, but you could tell we're raring to go. We have a team here, and we know how to get it done, but we respectfully request the planning board to recommend and consider this rezoning. I think it's a good thing for the town.
Well, as you're fully aware, we don't do the zoning.
I
It has to
am
go
well
up to,
aware of that,
council
yes,
for
yes.
that. The only way we would be doing it is if council requested us to investigate a re-examination of our master plan, which, being what Highlands is, we're in the process of doing that now. We'll have to resubmit that to Highlands. I don't know how long that takes for us to go with, but that's the way we would go. I apologize to the gentleman for doing our fair share housing plan and now, but we were kind of put up against it with the deadlines the Supreme Court has given to us. So I'm sure we can revisit that with this one with no problem. So, no, I, see the merits of this.
Great.
With a lot would depend on how our council wants to go with it, but we'd be more than happy to entertain it, and we'll take it that way. The mayor sits there if you'd like to address him.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely, Mayor. I think we're more than willing to come into council and do the same presentation. We're looking for guidance. Not necessarily tonight. It would be great to hear some guidance, but if we could get some feedback from the town, that would be great. We are contract purchasers of the site, and that puts us in a situation where it's always nice to know where you're headed. Uncertainty is not great for developers. So
I'm sure you have deadlines on that.
we have deadlines in our contract, so knowing which way we're headed is very important to us. We gave you a lot tonight to chew on. We hope we answered a lot of the questions that came up in the March meeting. Gave you the two options to consider. So we'll certainly be in touch. I know your board attorney was not here tonight. I did have one good call with him. I can keep in touch with him, but again, any guidance or recommendation as to how to go forward would be greatly appreciated.
I unfortunately missed the March meeting on that. Was there a presentation on what the retail space would look like if it was fully retail?
No, we had nothing at that point. Everything was kind
There
of
was not.
word of mouth.
No, actually, they asked, was there a retail plan? And I said, no, but I think I can generate, based on my experience, how many square feet without providing the plan. And that's why I
Why
analyzed it.
wouldn't you present the plan?
Because that's not really, quite frankly, what we want to do. We don't want to.
It's the old time. They want this up.
Yeah.
But you don't want to attempt to meet the existing zone?
No. I mean, I'm being frank, and I'm being honest with you that I've done enough that I would be very close to the 90,000 square feet if I did a plan.
Also, I just want to say, the we've had our challenges keeping the 30,000 feet rented, as you guys I'm sure will know. It's been a constant rotation. That site has not done well for us. It's been a challenge, and the rents are very low, and we would not be interested in developing the site as a retail location. We don't think it would fly. So, that's what.
And these would strictly be rental units. They wouldn't be a co-op style unit like Warren Heights was. So.
Rental.
Okay.
But not nice rental. I mean, we would build them comparable to the way we, built Warren Heights, that kind of finishes. And I mean, I think we've been around in town long enough. We've been doing this stuff, and we would definitely want this to be something town would be happy with.
One question I would have would be the COA units. Would they be interspersed throughout the area, or were we going to have them all in one building, or they would be interspersed? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, actually, one question also on COA. How would you derive 15% set aside for this whole site? Is it really have a background on that?
I can certainly have Mr. Bernard speak to it because it's in the COA rules that he wrote, but the general rule in the COA regulation is for rental affordables that the standard was 15%, and for sale affordables it's 20%, and that's what we follow.
Okay. Any further questions?
No, the only question I do have is we do have affordable housing zone here, which was created for Sycamore and is currently being constructed. And that has a set aside of 20% for rental. If they did sell, it would be 25%.
Okay. Was that a standard that we used for that, or was that our standard, or?
Well, that was the standard that Sycamore when everything was comparable at the time.
Okay.
And I would say they're building under that requirement, right?
I realize that, yes.
There's a highway business zone change. Site changed to MRI.
Similar to this one.
Yeah, that's an examination.
If I made it, that was probably based on the regulations that COA passed in 2008 that were returned in 2010. And in 2010, the appellate division and later the Supreme Court specifically overturned those set asides.
Okay.
So the fact that he's doing it is great, but by regulation, they were overturned.
So the regulation as it exists now?
The only regulation that has been upheld by the courts is a maximum set aside of 20% for sale and 15%.
Okay. Any other questions, Lou? Okay.
Thank you
Thank you
again
very
for
much.
hearing us.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll try to go as fast as we can.
We appreciate it.
And look forward to your cooperation in the future.
You'll have it.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Well, call for public comment. I don't see any public. Okay, if you want.
No. I'm reading. I'm just having an issue. Change the. It's all up. And we've got a master plan. We've been maintaining it for 30 years now. Reasons for this. Being on the EVAC committee, to approach St. Louis for help for commercial use, for medical use, for park section. Medical place is right on the side of this. This is one of our areas that we're kind of like hoping this could be a potential. Once the time starts up. And I understand what they're saying as far as they don't want to do it because it's just not economic sound right now. That's that things are going to change in the future. Let's hope we make it better. Let's not set short.
if it comes down to commercial, industrial versus residential, I'm gonna vote for that. That's revenue for us. That brings down, that hits the tax.
That's where I'm at, too, to be honest. I would go that route too.
Right. So, you know,
That's my opinion.
you know, it depends what they're proposing, if we get full taxes on it.
A lot of these guys come in with.
Any residential development in this town in the past 40 years has been a negative impact to the taxpayer. Always.
The school numbers.
I can't.
30
Yeah, I would dispute that. I mean, living up Delaware Crossing, I know what I pay in taxes, I know the services I use.
Right.
You're making money off me and our whole development.
The other thing is, we talked about earlier about the sewer capacity is in question, is 60,000. This is gonna be 60,000?
This will be 40 something. If you take 200 units times 225, you're gonna get 40 something. And that's what they have to go in with on their TWA.
So we're down to 15,000.
So why would we do that?
So,
It doesn't make any sense.
That's kind of like, what do we want, you said,
well,
what,
what
800,000?
George was talking about this before.
Any reserve we have in sewer capacity was looking for the industrial and commercial.
Yeah, not residential.
Not residential. We purposely didn't run sewers down, you know, past architects. You know, Highlands, that development there, we purposely didn't run that, you know. So, you know, there was a game plan in mind here with how we want to build out this town. And quite frankly, you know, the taxpayers were getting hit, and it's intuitively, you just know that commercial industrial, that brings in the revenue, and it's low impact to the taxpayer, and it helps the taxpayer out by bringing in more revenue.
That's what I would support.
That's those cars dumping on it for water,
higher water generation,
Correct.
wastewater generation. You know, with a retail development, you're only going to have it's the size of the highway facilities, about 9,000 gallons per day.
Right.
So, I mean, this site isn't a sewer service area. It's meant to be services capacity.
But it's highway business, so
capacity is
so that allocation is set for our commercial, not for residential.
Yeah, so the residential is 4 times.
Exactly.
Commercial.
We're
We
screwed.
lose the majority of anything that we have left.
There's no development that's too left, because it's gonna look, what, 10,000, 15,000
Right.
gallons per day?
It doesn't
50
make
gallons per day.
There's no sense of paying a SAR in a corner.
Yeah.
Why do that?
I mean, short-sighted, it's like, I understand where they're coming from, what they want to do, but it's, keep in mind, it's serving their purpose. The other thing too, he said he's throwing in some 3 bedrooms here. Okay.
Call it, yes.
Right. You know,
That's required by code.
But by the same token, we're looking
There's
at,
only one kid in each one of those.
we
Yeah,
get hit,
right.
we
You
get
wonder
hit
with
with a higher
Sycamore
number.
coming online, and a lot of vacancies in the other part.
Right.
What would this thing do?
You know, maybe that's a good point. Why don't we wait and see how Sycamore pans out? I mean, I understand they're in a rush here, but we're not.
We don't have to be in a, there's no reason for us to be in a rush.
Right.
It's all highway business.
That's a
which
good
is
idea. I'd
benefit
like to
the
see,
town.
let's see the impact of Sycamore, you know, because that's,
That's it.
yeah, 200 units, you know, it's similar, you know.
The numbers.
Yeah.
Sycamore land is 247 units.
And that's mixed family, no age restrictions or anything?
Correct.
Some of the
Yeah,
stuff,
it's
it's large.
50 affordables out of the 247. First occupancy is going to be January 2016. Just had a meeting with them on May 11th.
Great.
Well, maybe I'm just keeping an open mind. I'm a little skeptical on our ability to attract retail
Right.
or have retail succeed. There's been little interest. The Peaburg Mall is half empty. I've seen what's happened over there.
No,
No,
we're looking
back, we took on people.
Yeah, so and we just came up last meeting, we were talking about medical and that sort of thing.
There's no alternatives.
Coordinated is in competition with St. Luke's.
Correct.
They're fighting all the time.
Let's adjourn, let that go home.
Sure.
Okay, motion to adjourn,
Motion.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none? Okay, we're adjourned.